Okay.
Okay, are we safe to let everyone in?
People push everybody in?
Push everyone in.
We can admit guests in, yes.
It is 6 p.m.
Amen. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. As you're joining, we'll wait for just a minute while we let everyone into the meeting. Michael, go ahead and let me know when we've got the guests in.
Looks like we have connecting audio.
We're clear to get started when you are.
Great.
All right, let me kick this off. Good evening, everyone. I'm Craig Miller. I'm the General Manager at Western Municipal Water District. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight, we have a special board meeting, a customer information session on water and sewer rate adjustments. It is May 10th at 6 p.m. For those members of the public not familiar sometimes with the way we need to do business, we've noticed this as a board meeting tonight because per the Brown Act, if we have a majority of our board members at a meeting, we have to notice it as a public meeting. So this is noticed as a public meeting. We're expecting at least 3 of our board members in tonight. We only have 2 so far, but we expect others. There won't be any board discussion or any actions from the board, but the Brown Act requires it to notice as a meeting just so they can attend. And our board members are really interested in hearing the public's comments as they move forward towards consideration of what you're going to hear about tonight. They want to make sure that they've heard our customers. So let's go ahead and get started. We will take public comment after we open the meeting. Public comment is a requirement of the Brown Act also. If you have questions, you can save those questions. We'll have plenty of opportunity to answer questions later in the program, but per the Brown Act requirements, President Denstead will request public comment. So as we get going, Tammy, can you read our coronavirus protocols in, please?
Yes,
And
thank
Madam
you. Good
President,
evening,
it does
everyone.
look like we've got a quorum now.
Yes.
Thank you. In an effort to protect public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19, and in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, the public may view this board meeting virtually via Zoom, as there will be no public location for attending in person. This Zoom meeting will be recorded and available to view after the conclusion of today's meeting on Western's website at WesternMWD.com. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wish to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the district or any item on the agenda may make comments virtually or by submitting comments on the district's website. There will be several opportunities during today's customer information session to ask questions or to make public comments. Written comments received before 4:30 p.m. May 9th, 2021 will be made part of the board meeting record. For those participating in the Zoom virtual meeting who wish to provide public comments, please indicate such by using the raise hand feature, which may be accessed by opening the participant list and clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of the list. For those participating by telephone who wish to provide public comment, you may do so by pressing *6 to unmute yourself. If there's more than one caller, you will be identified and called on one at a time. Any public comment will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. I will now take roll call for the board meeting. Due to the complexity of conducting this meeting by Zoom and telephonically, I will not be taking roll call for staff members or the public at this time. Director Galliano. Director Rizvi.
Good evening, I'm here.
Thank you. Director Gardner.
I am here as well.
Thank you. Director Torres.
I'm here.
Thank you. President Denstedt.
I am present. Good evening.
Good evening. President Denstedt, you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, now that we've got that long housekeeping out of the way, we certainly appreciate everybody's patience while we comply with all of our requirements. This is another one tonight. It's for public comment. That is for any item which is not going to be currently discussed this evening. Folks, you will have an opportunity after the presentation to be able to ask your questions, and we encourage you to do it at that time. But right now, this is for any item which we're not going to discuss this evening, which is before this board and under the authority of this board in order to be able to take action. So we want to encourage you to comment publicly at this time. Madam Secretary, is there anyone who wishes to speak under public comment today?
President Dinstead, I have reviewed the attendees and I see no hands raised at this time, and I have not received any written public comments.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll go ahead and move back into our information sessions so we can provide our customers with all of the details in our presentation this evening. And folks, we do look forward to your questions and comments towards the middle and end of our presentation. And we certainly appreciate your joining us this evening and participating in this process. We do look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us tonight to learn more about Western's retail water and sewer rate adjustment proposal and how this may actually affect your bill in the coming months and years. My name is Sarah McDonald. I'm Western's Director of Strategic Communications, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's discussion. We do know that your time is very valuable, so we planned a full agenda to make sure you can get the most from us. I want to assure you as our audience members that you will have an opportunity to engage in an open discussion with subject matter experts about the proposals of the rate adjustments. We do know that nobody likes their bill to go up, and we're not necessarily here to try to make you excited about this, but instead our goals really tonight are to be as open as possible with you about what is being proposed and of course answer your questions to help you feel more informed. I'd like to introduce our panelist team, and next slide, if you will. They're going to be here tonight presenting information to you and asking and answering your questions. We have our General Manager, Craig Miller, our Deputy General Manager, Tim Barr, and of course, our Finance Director, Kevin Mascaro. Again, like I mentioned, you're going to have a chance to hear from each team member during the presentation, and they'll also be available when we do open it up to your questions. Before we get started, I want to run through a few additional housekeeping topics. We covered a lot of them already, but I want to really make sure everyone gets the most out of today's session. This session is being recorded, so keep in mind that if you join us on camera or use your audio or are submitting your chat questions, that'll be on camera, and that we'll be posting this to our website later. We will be automatically muting all of our attendees just to cut down on that background noise and out of respect for others when it is their turn to ask a question. After our presentation during the panel discussion, if you'd like to speak on camera, simply switch that camera on and your mic so you can be called on. If you don't want to be on camera, that's certainly okay too. You are encouraged to type your question into the Zoom chat bar at any time. Myself and staff are monitoring these questions that get submitted, and we'll be presenting your questions to the panel for discussion. We know a virtual meeting isn't always ideal, and we're dying to get back in person with you, but our goal is to make sure you do feel heard tonight, get those questions answered, and that you could provide your opinion and insight during that discussion time. To stay as transparent as possible with you and all of our customers, this meeting, like I mentioned, will be posted online. And it's also going to be posted with our past rate workshops, customer information sessions, and board meetings on this topic, so you can browse those as well. Before we really dive in, I want to share with you our agenda tonight so you kind of know what's planned, and you can plan to hang out with us as long as you feel you'd like. First, we're going to be using a polling question to determine what you're feeling is the most important topics that we cover tonight. And we'll be using this to guide our discussion after the presentation. Next, the Western team is going to go through that presentation that highlights what the adjustment proposal is and what our next steps are. And last but certainly not least, we'll hop into that panel discussion with our subject matter experts who are joining us tonight so that you get that opportunity to get your questions answered. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our poll. We do have about 5 questions that are going to be listed on your screen momentarily. We'd like you to pick the top 3 questions you want to see addressed this evening. When we move into that panel discussion portion of the meeting, we're going to address these questions first out of respect for your time. We want to make sure we're addressing the things that you care most about. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to select your top 3 questions you'd like to see addressed. And those questions are: 1, why is a rate increase needed at this time? Number 2, how much will my monthly bill increase? 3, how does Western spend the money that we already collect from customers, and why do we need to pay more? Number 4, why are Western's rates higher than other water utilities that are right next door, such as Riverside Public Utilities and Eastern Municipal Water District? And lastly, what is Western doing to control costs internally? And I'm watching the results come in. I think we do have all of the selections. So I'm going to go ahead and show those poll results. So you can see numbers 2 and 4 were the top. So we'll make sure we cover those questions first after the presentation. So we want to make sure you hear information up front from us, and then we'll get to these to kick open our panel. I'm now going to pass this off to our General Manager, Craig Miller, who's going to start our presentation and walk you through why we need a rate adjustment.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, for those tuning in with us tonight, the information is primarily geared towards our Riverside area tonight. 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, we did a presentation for our Marietta service area. So the numbers and the charts that you'll see tonight are really geared towards Riverside, but certainly in the question and answer session, if you have any questions and you're a Marietta customer tuning in tonight, we'll be happy to answer those too. So let's get into the presentation here. Roll it back again, Michael. Let me talk a little bit about the need for a rate adjustment. So, this is a difficult one for me as general manager. No one likes to ask for rate increases. It's tough time in the pandemic. No one wants to hear a rate increase. I know where I live, when my water provider proposes a rate increase, I'm not happy about it. So we understand that. What we want to do tonight is make sure that our customers understand the need, and you see what drives the need for the rate increase. And we certainly recognize the financial difficulties that some of our customers are in because of the pandemic. And so we think we've done a lot to help our customers out to get them through the pandemic. This rate adjustment isn't about the pandemic. This is about increasing costs. And these are costs that affect our ability to serve water. So let's get into the details. Let's go to the next slide. So we got to keep pace with increasing service costs. So here's 4 categories that are really the biggest drivers. Look at imported water. So for our Riverside service area, the majority of our water is imported water. So what does that mean? A lot of people don't know where their water comes from. Well, if you're in our Riverside service area, a majority of your water is coming from Northern California. It's coming from Lake Oroville. So that drop of water starts as snow in the mountains. It melts and it goes into Lake Oroville. It's then released into the State Water Project system, travels through the Delta, down through the Central Valley. You drive past that channel when you go to Northern California, over the mountains, here locally to the Mills treatment plant where it's treated, and then into our service system. So that water is coming a long way, and those costs are increasing. That cost, we get that water through Metropolitan Water District. They increased their costs already 3% this year in January. It's going up 4% next January, and then 5% for the following Januaries. And their financial projections are that for the foreseeable future, it will continue to increase at 5%. Energy is a key driver for us. It takes a lot of energy to move water around. So that's important to our budget. We've budgeted a 5% rate increase. We're hearing, you've probably heard this too for your home. We're a customer just like you are, but that hardening that Edison calls it to their system to protect against wildfires, those costs are all going to come to all of us as customers. So we're hearing talk of 15 to 18% rate increases by Edison. We've put a number in our budget to guess at what they're going to do, but we don't know in the future. So probably underestimated what they're going to do in the future, but that's the energy side. Then operations and maintenance, all the chemicals, all the parts, the pieces, the motors, everything that we have to buy, those costs are all increasing. Staffing costs are in there. Staffing costs are increasing. Benefits for our employees are increasing. And then regulatory requirements. I don't know that our customers think about regulatory requirements, but every time there's a new water quality standard that we have to meet, a new testing standard that we have to meet, those costs are increased costs. Our laboratory costs, our sampling costs, our treatment costs, they all increase. And the state never, and the feds never give us additional funding for those new requirements, but we have to meet them by mandate. And so those costs have to be passed on and borne by Western and our customers. And it's not just water quality, it's things like AQMD, air quality standards. We're going to be having to meet electric vehicle requirements just like customers are, and those electric vehicles are going to be more expensive. So we are always trying to stay ahead of regulatory requirements. So those are the big drivers. Let's go to the next slide. Something we hear on social media quite a bit is Western's making a profit off of their customers. And we're a public entity. We're a public agency. We report to 5 elected board members. We don't make a profit. There's no motive. There's no incentive for us to make a profit. Everything we collect is from our customers to serve our customers, and it's the customer's money. So we hear that on social media sometimes, that we're adjusting our water budgets or we're increasing rates so that we can make more money, and that's not the case at all. Everything, we do a cost of service study, and we have auditors, and everything we do is to provide service, water and sewer, for our customers, and we're very careful about how we budget and use our customers' money. Next slide. Like I said, cost increases are driving this need for a rate adjustment. And the difficult thing for Western is that half of those costs are outside of our control. So there's nothing we can do to trim those costs. We can't come up with some budget saving measure. We can't change staffing. There's really nothing we can do. The cost of imported water and electricity are outside of our cost, so outside of our control. So the only thing we can do is include that in our rates to our customers. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit more about the origin of your water, and maybe you'll see the true value in water. We sit up here or down here in Riverside, I guess, in terms of the state. I'll talk in terms of the state. We sit down here in Riverside. It's very hot, very arid climate, and we're getting water from the Sierra Nevadas. Great quality of water, but it comes a long way. So it's in, like I said, it's in Lake Oroville. It comes down through the state project. It's pumped over the mountains. It goes to the Mills treatment plant, and then it goes into our system. So that's 700 miles of facilities, pipelines, pump stations, channels that we have to pay Metropolitan to maintain. So not only do they have to capture the water, but then they have to move the water, and moving water is what is so expensive. So then within our own system, we have almost 500 miles of pipeline that we have to maintain and fix and upgrade. We also blend local water in. So that's 700 miles of imported water, 499 miles of internal pipelines, but we also have local water that comes into our system. That is local groundwater through the Arlington desalter and the Chino desalter, and it moves through our Sterling pump station. And then we also have an agreement with Riverside Public Utilities to use local groundwater underneath Riverside Public Utilities area. It's surplus water that they don't have a need for, and so we have a temporary agreement where they're selling it to us. So all that water is blended together, and that is your supply. That goes to your house. And then we also operate the sewer side of it. So what comes out of your house goes to 2 different treatment plants. And then we have a recycled water system, and some is discharged to the ocean. So another 50 miles of pipeline that we maintain on the downward side of the water system, the sewer system. So that's where your water comes from. Let's go to the next slide. So this is important, and we hear this a lot on social media. I get a lot of questions about this, is what are our sources of water? Well, a small amount of recycled water, small but growing, 40% local water, 56% imported water. So that imported water is coming from Northern California. The local water is the interesting one because Western was formed back in the 50s to import water to the region. So what does that mean? If it wasn't for Western bringing Northern California water to our service area, we wouldn't have a service area. We wouldn't have business and homes because there wouldn't be any water. We do not have local water under our feet that we can pump out of the ground. So the local water that we have is coming through other facilities. So it's coming through these desalters that are capturing saltier water and treating it, or it's through agreements with other agencies like RPU. So we call it local water, but it's not under our own feet. So when we get it from RPU, they pump it out in their wells, it goes through their treatment systems, through their pipelines and pumps, and then we have an interconnection with them and we get the water. So even though we call it local water, we're paying quite a bit for it because we have to pay for the use of RPU's system. And so that, rather than RPU's cost of about $250 an acre foot for that local water, it's actually $800 an acre foot to Western. And imported water, just for a comparison, is about $1,100. So the local water is less expensive, which is a good thing. So we try and maximize the use of local water, but it's not like it's $250 an acre foot like it is for RPU. And that's why you see a big differential in the cost that RPU customers pay compared to the cost that Western's Riverside customers pay. So that's kind of a little bit more background just for education for our customers. It's confusing where water comes from, and most water districts have a different supply mix. So this is where ours comes from for our Riverside customers. Let's go to the next slide. So let me get our Director of Finance on here, Kevin Mascaro, and let him talk about where the monies that we collect go.
Great, thank you, Craig. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so now that you know what drives some of our costs, I want to share briefly where your dollars go. So as Craig already mentioned, 46% of your dollars go just to purchase the water delivered to homes and businesses. So that's almost half of our budget just to get the water from either Northern California or from the city of Riverside into our service area. And the next 46%, now that supports the maintenance of the entire local water system of Western. These maintenance costs include labor and benefit costs for our highly trained and experienced staff. And that includes our plant operators, technicians, engineers. All of these folks think every day how to ensure the safe, reliable delivery of water whenever you turn on the tap or irrigate your yard. So this category also includes materials, supplies, and repair costs for our storage tanks, our pumps, and the miles of pipelines, as well as water quality testing and energy to move the water to your property. Now for that last 8%, we set aside funds for a very essential function, and that is replacing parts of the system as they reach the end of their useful life. This 8% also includes debt service on bonds that have been sold by Western to fund the construction of various capital improvements. All right, next slide, please. All right, now let's spend a few slides telling you what you really want to know, right? How will the rate adjustments impact your bill? Let's look at the next slide. So Western has improved our forecasting capabilities so that for the first time, we're proposing rates for 4 years. Now, this gives customers a better idea of what future water bills will be like and plan accordingly. So I'll share the full impacts in the next slide, but in the first year, the typical residential customer will see an average monthly bill increase between $2 and $4. Now, if the board approves the adjustments, they will take effect beginning this July 1st and then each July 1st thereafter. All right, next slide. Well, I know there's a lot of numbers on this slide, but let me walk you through them, all right? This information is for an average or really a median residential customer in our Riverside service area. The top section addresses the impact on an average month's water bill. The bottom section is the impact on sewer charges. So for water, you see that the monthly impact averages $2.33 per month and grows each year $4 to $5.40. Then on the right-hand side is the bill impact in percentages. Now, I'll bet many of you may not know or be quite sure what sewer area you are in, or even if Western is your sewer provider, because Western only provides sewer service to about a third of our water customers. So to know how your bill will specifically impact you with these rates, be sure to review your customized public hearing notice that was mailed out a few weeks ago, so you can see exactly what area you are in and if Western provides you with sewer service. But as you can see in the bottom section, the average monthly sewer rate impact goes from about $1.50 to $2 in the first year and remains close to those amounts for the remainder of the 4-year rate setting term. And just so you know what the acronyms are, EDU refers to an equivalent dwelling unit, and that represents the sewer flow of one typical residential customer. So if you're a residential customer, you have one EDU. And then also WRF, or WWRF, that stands for our Western Water Recycling Plant, our facility. That is a nice word for our sewer plant. So next I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who will be sharing some changes that we may be making to your water budget that will actually reduce costs for you if you find yourself going over your water budget from time to time. Tim?
Thanks, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. After 10 years with a 5-tier water budget rate structure, Western is considering changes to the structure that will ultimately benefit the customer. Before I detail the changes, I'd like to remind everybody how the tiered structure works. The first 2 tiers added together are considered in-budget water use. Western provides an individualized budget for every customer based on the specific number of residents and the unique landscape size. If the customer's household size changes, they can contact customer service and a representative will help modify the budget factors. Water use that is above the individualized water budget gets more expensive the more over budget a customer gets. Western currently has 5 tiers total, with 3 of those in the over budget tiers. The revenue collected from the conservation component in tiers 3, 4, and 5 by law is used only in customer support programs. These are free efficiency evaluations, rebates for water efficient fixtures, appliances, and irrigation products, even rebates for replacing turf grass with landscaping that is less water using and more appropriate for a climate like ours. So we are making changes to the structure. These changes are compliant with new state regulations and a change that will lower the cost of over budget water use, as Kevin said. Change number 1, the efficiency standards in California have changed from 60 gallons per person per day indoors to 55 gallons per person. Many people do not realize that the state passed legislation that provides a water budget to every retail agency in California. This budget looks at the same factors that Western uses in its individualized customer budgets, gallons per person and landscape area outside. Change number 2, we're going to widen the tier 3 so that it is bigger and includes the existing tier 4. Change number 3, and the most exciting for some, we're going to eliminate the most costly tier 5 altogether. So how do these changes help the customer? So lower cost supplies fill the tier 1 indoor demand. Shrinking the per person factor creates a surplus of local supply that can be cost blended with imported water to lessen the cost of tier 2 outdoor water budgets. And widening tier 3 and eliminating tier 4 will frankly make over budget water use less expensive. Why are we changing? Again, first to keep pace with state efficiency standards, and because over budget water use by customers has dropped substantially. In the last 10 years, customers have reduced their demand for water by 40%. That's a phenomenal number. So we don't need to develop the conservation programs that we had in 2011, 2012, and 2013. We can have a more strategic approach to our conservation programs that will get funded from the conservation component in tier 3 and tier 4. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Craig and we'll move to slide 17.
All right, thanks, Tim. So let's talk about cost management efforts. I think customers always want to know that we're operating efficiently and we're using the revenue that we get from customers effectively and not wasting their money. So let me highlight a few areas that we have really focused on to reduce our costs and help our customers out. Let's go to the next slide. So here's 7 different areas. I won't get into a lot of detail in these, but I just want to give an example of things that we work on behalf of our customers. So the first one is our meter replacement program. Now that may not sound like a cost savings to spend more money on meters, but the reality is this is really good for our customers, because as meters, these are the meters out in your parkway in front of your house that measure your consumption in your house and in your yard. It all goes through one meter. As those wear out, it's a mechanical device and it stops reading. So a person with a worn out meter isn't getting charged for their water. Well, Western still has to buy that water from others. So we're buying it on one hand and we're not collecting any revenue on the other hand. So we've replaced about, Kevin, have we replaced half of the meters in our service area?
Yes, a little bit over half, and we're about to do about probably another, we'll be at about 90% by the time we're done with phase 2, Craig.
Right. So that investment in meters, what does it mean overall for all of our customers is the water that isn't being paid for by an individual customer because their meter doesn't work has to be paid by all of our other customers, because we don't have any other revenue source to pay for that water except to spread the cost over all of our customers. So what's actually happened and why our rate adjustment is actually much lower than the cost increases that we've been seeing this year is because we're generating more revenue from the meter replacement, and we're returning that money right back to our customers again. So you're reaping the benefits of the meter replacement. We work a lot on regional water supply partnerships. So I talked about our partnership with RPU. We also have a partnership with Eastern. We have a partnership with Elsinore Valley. We have a partnership with Chino Desalter Authority. Those are all agreements that bring water less expensively than imported water from Northern California to us. So that's saving. Every time we enter into a new agreement, the cost metric is, does it save us money and cut our water supply costs? So those agreements have saved our customers a lot of money. Refinancing debt. So this is really amazing. During the pandemic, we went out to the bond market. We asked the credit agencies to improve our credit. We made our pitch. They actually increased our credit rating to AA+. That allowed us to go out to the bond market. We went out and refinanced a bunch of debt. What does all that mean? It's saving $9 million over the life of that debt for our customers. Project grants, we've received $27 million in project grants. That's offsetting customer costs. Local supplies through capital projects. We continue to invest in capital projects. Every capital project that is producing water that's less than metropolitan is a good thing for our customers. So we continue to look for that. Controlling labor costs. We've controlled headcount. I haven't added new employees to the agency. That's a direct labor savings. And then we've gone out and been good shoppers on benefits, and we've lowered our premium costs on some of our key benefits by as much as 33%. So that's saving money. And then operational efficiencies. We have a very robust program internally. I think last year we had 14 suggestions from employees to be more efficient, and that saved us about $1.2 million annually with those suggestions on efficiency. So our employees, our staff is really engaged in trying to be more efficient and save our customers money. So those are a few of our efforts. We've got others, but that just kind of highlights some of the big ones that we've been working on. Next slide. All right, let me turn it back to Sarah and let her talk about some really important dates that are coming up in the future that you should know about as a customer.
Great. Well, thank you, Craig. And before I jump right into the public hearing information that's on your screen, I do think it's really important for our guests to hear that outreach to our customers is critically important to us and something we're working really hard here at Western to improve. We know that rates can be confusing and that a lot of our customers, especially those that neighbor other agencies, are still learning why Western costs might be a little higher. And it's why it has been so important to us to offer these sessions in addition to a variety of other outreach activities. So we're being as open as possible with you and really working hard to improve the understanding of our costs so that we can continue providing you that reliable, safe, high quality service. If you do love this presentation so much, or we don't quite get to all of your questions, we are going to be offering a similar presentation again this Wednesday at 6 p.m. So if you have friends or neighbors that couldn't quite make it today, be sure to let them know there's another opportunity to meet with staff before our public hearing. So what you see on the screen is the save the date for our public hearing on Wednesday, June 2nd. This public hearing will take place at 6 p.m. and we'll be offering it both in person and virtually. We know we all want to be in person, but we're still facing this pandemic and all the different evolving guidelines. So we wanted to be able to provide an opportunity for all of our customers to join us in a way that you really feel most comfortable. This hearing is that formal meeting where our board will hear a final presentation about the proposed rate adjustments. They're going to consider those changes and ultimately make a decision. During this hearing, it's also our customers' last opportunity, members of the public also, last opportunity, but you are invited to attend and make your comments and let us know if you are in support or even opposition of the proposed changes. It's also important to know that all of the information about the hearing and ways to offer your comments are on our website, WMWD.com, and you can access our rates information straight from our homepage. And we do have a section that's designed to be your one-stop shop for any information that you need about these changes. In addition to this public hearing information, you can access all of our past meeting recordings about the rate proposal. We'll have all of our rate notices that you've already received by mail are also there online, along with several FAQs and more information. So be sure to save that date and join us at our public hearing. With that, it does conclude our presentation. So it's my pleasure to start opening it up to our panel for discussion and your questions. I'll be helping facilitate those tonight. So don't forget that as we get going, you can raise your hand using the raise hand button, or you can type in your questions in the chat. Just like how Western's board meetings are conducted, we do request that your statements be short and on topic, really just to help us get through any of the questions and comments that you do have tonight. And before we jump into those hand raises and the chat box, I did want to address and kick us off with those questions we had in the poll. You told us those were most important at the beginning of the meeting. So the one that was rated the highest interest was, how much will my monthly bill increase? We did talk about this through a couple of slides in the presentation, but just to make sure it's really clear, I think, Kevin, you might be the best to answer this question. As you're answering that question about how much a monthly bill will increase, I've also heard a couple of customers ask us if they're on septic, if they're going to have to pay those sewer bill increases. So perhaps you can address both of those at the same time. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Sarah. I'll address the septic one first, and the answer is no. So only customers or only properties that are connected to our wastewater or sewer system will see these rate adjustments. So when it comes to the impact for a residential customer, for example, what we look at is we kind of sort all of our customers from the smallest user all the way to the largest user. And we go right in the middle, which is the median. We say, okay, it's almost like a bell curve. That's where most of our customers reside, right in the middle as far as their volume of water. So we look at a typical bill. What is a typical bill? Well, it has an indoor budget based on the number of people in the home, days in the billing period, and then also the average amount of irrigated area for those homes. From there, we can calculate their outdoor water bill. So what we do is we look at a typical bill. Actually, we calculate it for the whole year. What do these rate adjustments, how will they impact the entire year's worth of bills, and then divide it by 12, right? So we get the average monthly impact on a water bill or on a sewer bill. And so what we were looking at earlier on slide 15, in that first year, it's $2.33 is the average monthly increase for the water part. And that's much lower than future years because, as Craig talked about, our unbilled or unaccounted for water, which we commonly refer to as water loss, reduced dramatically by installing new meters and replacing those old meters that were slowing down over time. So that really helped that first year. But then for years 2, 3, and 4, we're looking at anywhere between a monthly bill impact of $4 to $5.40, somewhere around 2% to 4.5% for our Riverside service area. The sewer, a little bit lower, between $1.50, depending on what area you're in, $1.50 a month impact to $2.33 per month impact over that 4-year period.
Great, thank you, Kevin. We'll go ahead and move on to the second question that was rated the highest of interest to our guest joining us this evening. Was something we actually hear quite a bit at Western. So it shows us we still have a lot of work to do to help you understand this. So tonight's a perfect night to do that. The question is, why are Western's water rates higher than other utilities, especially those right next door, such as Riverside Public Utilities and Eastern Municipal Water District? Craig, I'll pass this one over to you, but I know Tim's also well-versed in this topic and might be able to help you out as well.
All right, I might tap out if I need help, and Tim can tap in. But yeah, so I get this all the time. You know, when I talk to my neighbors in my neighborhood, they ask me these questions. You know, well, where's my water come from, and you know, how much does it cost, and why? And so this is really difficult conceptually for people that live in Riverside, because if you're in RPU's service area, RPU started pumping water 100 years ago from the groundwater basins below the Santa Ana River. So they just have to pump water out of the ground and put it in their distribution system, give it a little bit of treatment. And so they can develop that water, and an acre foot is the number that we use on a water resources side. That's a quantity of water for about 4 families. So an acre foot of water in RPU service area can be produced for about $250 an acre foot. Well, we don't have, as I said, under our Riverside service area, we do not have any groundwater. There's a little tiny bit up in the hills that individuals have put a well in just for their own use, but there's not very much water, and those wells do go dry in the summer sometimes. But on a municipal level, there's not enough groundwater. So we don't have groundwater. So, you know, our residents that live up here in Orange Crest and Mission Grove, they bought a house in an area that doesn't have any groundwater sitting below it. Well, that's okay. That's why we were formed. We were formed to provide water and go find water. And we have water coming from Northern California, or it could come from Colorado River through the Metropolitan Water District. Now, as I said, we're trying to save money, so we've looked for local water, but our local water is not the same as RPU's water. We have to kind of connect to someone else's system. So we have to lease, basically rent that system to move water, and we have to pay costs. So we have a lease fee, basically, to think about it in real estate terms. So that water that we get from RPU is really about $800 an acre foot. So obviously, if RPU is only paying $250 for the supply cost, they have to maintain all of their system just like we do, and they have a staff and water quality sampling and everything. We have the same thing here, but our water supply cost is $800 or $1,100. So people have also said, well, why doesn't RPU just take us over? And why aren't we all just RPU customers? Well, you can't. That's why we were formed, because RPU did not have enough water back in the 50s to move it up the hill to where we are. And so if you were an RPU customer in our service area, RPU would have to go and buy more imported water to serve you. And so either way, there's not enough local water to go around, and imported water would have to come into the mix. So that's why we're different than RPU. And we get the question about Eastern. Well, what about Eastern? They import Met water, but they're still a little less expensive than Western. Well, they have local water like RPU does, but then they also import Met water. So they have kind of like a third kind of mix that we don't have and RPU doesn't have. But Eastern's rates, Kevin's looked at this. I've asked Kevin to look at it before. Their rates for an average user are about, 16% less than what Western customers pay. So I've heard customers said, you know, you're 7 times as much as Eastern. Well, that's just not the case. We've looked at it very carefully from a financial standpoint, and it's about 16%. So every agency has different water supply mix and a different cost for their customers. Sorry, that's a really long answer. Tim, I think I got it. I don't need you to tap out unless you have
did very
something
well.
you wanted to add.
No, you did very well. You nailed all the good points.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that response, Craig. This one is somewhat similar. You mentioned in the last question that Western was founded in order to bring that imported water so that this area could thrive economically and see Riverside become what it is today. But we had a question from a guest come in through our chat, really wanting to understand a little bit better, why doesn't Western have our own groundwater? So maybe you can address that specifically,
Sure.
even though you've already mentioned.
Yeah, I've mentioned it, and everybody's heard about fighting over water, and that's really fighting over water rights. So it's the right to the water. And if you live on a river, you have rights to that river. If you live over a groundwater basin, you have rights to that water. We don't have groundwater underneath our service area, so we don't have the right to that water. So we have to go and hope we can find rights somewhere else, and it's never under our own feet. So we got to take a straw and put that straw somewhere else. And every time you do that, you're moving water, you're drilling new wells, you're probably treating water, because the water that's kind of left and available is water that has high salts in it or something else. We can safely remove it with desalters. So the quality of the water that we serve is great, but there's a cost in removing the salts from that water. So we've been able to go out and construct deals to get local water, but it's not right under our feet. So we have to move the water, treat the water, build additional infrastructure. So all that comes at a cost. Now, one other thing I would like to address for the customers is, okay, metropolitan water is $1,100 an acre foot. Boy, that seems kind of expensive. Well, with that, there's a lot of value included in that. And you may recall that we were in a 6-year drought a few years ago, and Western customers were never asked to curtail their water use. You had all the water you wanted to use in a drought, and we're living in Riverside, it's 100 degrees all summer. You had all the water you wanted to use. Well, that's because Metropolitan is kind of like the mothership of water, and they're storing water on our behalf so that we can make it through these dry periods, as long as they're not too long. And so, they've got storage accounts with water in various surface reservoirs and groundwater reservoirs all over the state for us in Southern California as one of Met's customers to utilize. And we're talking about a dry year again. You're hearing the governor talk about emergency drought declarations. We're not in that. And the good news for us is Metropolitan has 3.2 million acre feet stored in storage in various areas right now in preparation for a drought. So yeah, $1,100 seems expensive, but with that, you're getting a huge savings account and you're getting drought reliability. And that's important for our customers, because never do we want to tell our customers that we don't have water for them. And so, the water quality that you're getting from Metropolitan and that reliability that you're getting from Metropolitan all has to be taken into consideration when you say that seems really expensive. There's a lot of value in what they're providing.
Right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. I did want to let our guests know I am getting these questions out in the order that I receive them, both on those hand raises and in the chat. So feel free to keep sending us those chat questions or raise your hand at any time, and I'll be sure to call on you when it's your turn. I did notice earlier in the presentation, Diego Noboa, you did have your hand raised, so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask your question if you still have it. So I'll give you a minute to unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'd be happy to move on to the next question. I see you're unmuted. Diego, did you have a question for us?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. I had a question for me, and I forget presenting. In that slide, they talk about the percentages which were incremental from year 1 to year 2 and so on and so forth. So my question was, are those percentages from today, or is that from the previous year? I mean, it's not gonna make that much of a difference, but I was just curious because I didn't think I caught on to that, or I don't know if you covered that or not, but.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Diego. Kevin, can you address that for us?
Yes, good point. Good clarifying point. Something I should mention in the future. Yes. So what it does is the percentage impact in year 2 is on top of the new rates from year 1. Year 3, that percentage increase is on top of the prior year or year 2's rates. So yeah, it's not cumulative, nor does it go back to the base or current year rates. It always looks at the previous year. Good clarifying.
Got it. Thank you so much. And I had one follow-on question unrelated to that. Slide 18 talked about, the gentleman who was briefing that slide, talked about the amount of debt that essentially they were able to save when they refinanced during the pandemic and all of that good stuff. The question is, how is that debt being managed? I don't know if this is maybe the forum to talk about that, but I was just curious. I mean, if we're saving $9 million over a period of time, it sounds like the debt is sizable, I would imagine. So how is that debt? How much is it? Like, is that something that we can talk about in this forum? I was more curious than anything.
Yeah, we can talk. We're happy to talk about that a little bit. We have a finance committee that we talk at great length about that, but we're happy to talk about it a little bit. Kevin, can you give us the amount of debt that was refinanced and what we've done with that debt?
Sure. And when I talk about debt too, I'm also talking about Western Municipal wide. So not just the Riverside service area, but all the other service areas, the different other projects. So when I tell you what the dollar amount is of total debt of Western, it's about 175 million. That does not apply to the Riverside service area. But what happened is that we have a financial advisor. Actually, we have a couple of financial advisors that are always looking for opportunities to save money. Why do they look for that? Because then when we actually hire them to help refinance the debt, that's when they earn their pay. But in the meanwhile, they on their own for free, they keep looking for opportunities to save money. Now, there's something called net present value, but you want to try to achieve a certain amount of net present value savings whenever you refinance debt. Why? Because if it's not that high, then you might end up issuing your issuance costs, paying the attorneys, the financial advisor, all the folks. You might end up spending all your savings just to pay the people who are consulting for you. You don't want to do that at all. But we had a significant net present value savings on this. I'm telling you, it's like we hit the bond market at just the right time. I would have thought, oh my goodness, it's a pandemic. Maybe everyone's afraid, they don't want to do it. The market was looking for investment opportunities that are safe. And when you got safe, you go to a public utility that provides an essential service like water and wastewater. We're a AA+ as far as a credit rating. I think we got interest rates at the AAA, the highest rating, because at just the right time we entered the market. And so that $9 million savings is over the remaining term of the bonds, which is probably average maybe 20 years or so. So all that interest over the 20 years, you discount that to today's dollar, only about a $9 million savings. So that affected all of our customers, all the different programs that Western is involved in.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and great job on the presentation. Very, very thorough. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that feedback, Diego. We're going to go ahead and move on to another question that was received earlier in the presentation through the chat. And it's asking Western to please explain what role the rebranding has in the rate increase. And it's a little bit of my wheelhouse, but Craig, if you'd like to kick it off.
I will kick it off, but Sarah is the expert. So the rebranding didn't play any role in the rate increase. The rates are based on the cost of service to our customers. Rebranding is a very small effort that we've looked at. We think it's very important in our outreach. The world is all about communications these days, and we want to make sure that we're keeping up with the rest of the business world, and we need to be communicating with our customers at a level that they understand and in the ways that they want to be communicated to. Well, in our perspective, we were kind of old school, and we probably aren't doing as good a job as we can. And so we have evaluated, things that we can change to be more effective communicators. And with that, I'd much prefer that my communications expert talk about that rather. I'm a water guy, I'm an engineer, so this is a little out of my lane, but Sarah, you can address that more effectively than I can.
Absolutely. Well, I think you did a pretty great job. And first and foremost, hitting on the point that that project in itself didn't drive the rate increases and has been already pre-planned as part of our work. And I think with branding, you know, there is some stigma around that, but really it's more than what people often think of, like a logo or a visual system, but it's really part of our effort to move towards achieving the objectives that our board has given Western as part of our strategic communications plan, which includes ensuring our customers know who Western is, what services we offer, and that we're delivering you those services as exceptionally as possible. And so there's a whole host of effort going on around that very objective. We want to be meeting customers where you are, making sure that you have relationships with us through a variety of ways. So all of that is related to sort of a rebranding effort. And to kind of be a little bit more specific about the impacts to the budget, we know we are a public agency, and so we keep customer dollars in mind in every decision, every project that we move forward. And that is no different with something like this. As Craig mentioned, it's very, very small relative to any other cost that Western has, but we're looking at a more long-term rollout approach so that as we need to update items or replace items that are regularly procured, we would be applying that. We still have several steps to go in that process, and it has included internal work with our staff. It's included customer focus groups. It's included surveys, because we really want to make sure if we are making changes that our customers are connecting with us in a way that is meaningful to you. And so there's still many steps in this. We don't have a hard timeline for that, but it is an ongoing project with very minimal impacts and did not drive this rate increase whatsoever. But it is critically important that we maintain an ability to communicate with our customers and reflect who Western is now and where we're headed in the future. So with that question, I do want to turn it over to our customer who has a hand raised, R. Mahoney. We'd love to entertain your questions. So if you want to unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Hello, and thank you for having this meeting. I have to say that I heard from a neighbor about this meeting, and from what I can tell, there's only about 18 participants. So my first suggestion would be to either send a text message or emails or both to customers so they are aware that this is coming up in June. I have gone to meetings before in the past, so I am well aware of your location, and maybe we'll have to keep the distancing, and that would be fine. But I think it's very important to let as many customers as possible know about this. 18 is, no pun intended, that's a drop in the bucket. Okay.
We love a water pun.
Okay. It seems to me that you did not use your budget for the year. I know fiscal's not over yet, but in terms of traveling, we didn't do anything. Nobody did anything. So I would imagine there'd be a substantial amount, at least, that you would be saving in terms of that. You know, I think about what's happening with our government. The government acknowledges we, the people, will continue to endure hardships. This is not over. Hopefully things are getting better, but not by a long shot. Okay, we've got a long way to go still. Okay. The DMV has pushed back the Real ID to 2023. We were all thinking we had to do it last year. No, we didn't. We thought we were going to have to do it this October. No, we don't. They recognize that we are in this. We're all in this. And so they're giving us time to recoup. Okay, so that's an example right there. If I may quote Sarah, where she said, we're still facing the pandemic. We are still facing the pandemic. Okay, so I think the timing for rate increases is all wrong. It's just not the right time. I understand there are expenses coming from point A to point B. I get that. But I've been on furlough now for over a year. I have to reapply for EDD. Okay. And I think I speak for so many customers that are in this type of situation now as we speak. What do you tell those customers when they can't pay the bill? And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. And I just want to make sure that we are hearing you and we're addressing those concerns. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try to go ahead and rephrase it as a question and allow staff an opportunity to kind of just address that so others on our call can also hear. So what I'm hearing is, the real concern is with this pandemic going on and knowing that so many are facing economic hardship, how can an increase be necessary now when people are still struggling with sort of the aftermath and the continuation of the pandemic? Craig, I'll turn that over to you, and perhaps at the same time we can also share what some of our assistance programs are so that those that are struggling know how to get support that they need.
Sure. So first of all, we saw this coming when we put our budgets together last year. So we do a 2-year annual budget. And as we were preparing that budget, we actually started in November. We got to December, the pandemic hit in February, right? And then lockdown in March. Well, that was right as we were going through this. Well, we reached out to our board and we talked to our board about increasing our assistance program for our customers, because we had no idea that this was going to be going on for a year, but we knew it was going to be significant. And so we actually increased our rate assistance program by 400% to help our customers out. So that's one thing that we did. Now, as far as it is a really difficult situation that we're in, because this rate adjustment was planned years ago, and our costs have been increasing and our costs continue to increase, and cost increases don't recognize the pandemic at all. So like I talked about earlier in the presentation, those cost increases have already happened. No one else is delaying their cost increases. So we're very conscious, and we've heard this from our customers and from the business community. We don't want to see big spikes in rate increases. And if we delay these increases and we keep absorbing these costs, there's going to be a huge spike. There's going to be a big rebound effect. And we've seen this in the water industry. I've seen this in my career numerous times. In fact, Metropolitan Water District went several years without a rate increase because of the politics. And they came back, and in January of one year, I don't remember which exact year it was, they increased rates by 21%. And then September, literally 9 months later, they increased them by 14% more. And that was because they went for about 5 years without a rate increase. We've heard from our customers in strong voices that we want steady, slow increases. So that's the path that we're marching on. That's what we're recommending to our board. Now, as far as those customers that can't afford water because of what's happened to them in the pandemic, our hearts go out to those people. I know those people, right? I know them. And I think that we've done the responsible thing as a water agency and as an industry, because our board took an action immediately and said, we're not going to shut anyone off. No one's going to be without water during the pandemic. So there are no shutoffs. We're not charging customers late fees if they don't pay. Now, then the governor came on and said no one should shut anyone off. Well, our board was ahead of the game. So right now, customers are getting water, and if they're not paying if they can't pay. Now, how do they get out of that predicament? Because we had to buy that water. So there's this building debt. Well, we recognize that our customers are going to need help, and we're very active back in DC and in Sacramento trying to get rate assistance for our customers. We've already seen rate assistance roll out for renters. That assistance is available right now. You can apply through the city of Riverside or through the county, depending on where you live, if you're a renter. Now, what hasn't flowed, there's a water pun for you, what hasn't flowed out of DC yet and out of Sacramento is low income rate assistance, and that's on its way. We just don't know yet what programs that money is going to come out in. And then there's going to be additional money that's coming out of the federal government. But I also heard just this afternoon that the governor announced $2 billion for utility rate assistance in the state. So that's the real deal that we've been lobbying for and working so hard for. Now the follow-up work is making sure that that makes it into the state budget, make sure that we have a pathway to help our customers out and get that money to the people that need it. So I fully appreciate people's concerns about the pandemic, but I also would advocate strongly for Western that we've done the right thing and we're looking out for our customers, because we don't want anyone to come out of this pandemic owing a huge amount on their water bill. We want people to be back on their feet and contributors to this economy again and recover quickly. Again, sorry, very long answer to your question, but a very, very important topic. And we talk a lot about it. And, you know, my board of directors, 4 of them are on here. They take it very seriously. And actually every month we do an update to our board on what we're doing to try and recover our customers who aren't able to pay their bills.
Thanks, Craig. And Ms. Mahoney, I do see your hand raised again. I did just want to reiterate the importance that we know a lot of our customers are experiencing that financial hardship. We do see that. And we do have our customer service team standing by ready to assist and connect anyone that's struggling and who's eligible to those payment assistance programs. We also have several repayment planning that we can do with you. We want to make sure our customers get connected to the resources that are available, and ultimately those that we can see start flowing from the state and federal sides with supporting any past due balances. So you'll hear more from us when we do get those updates, but definitely reach out to our customer service team or our outreach team so that we can get you connected. Ms. Mahoney, I have
yes. One more point. There was another question that she asked, and that was, hey, you got this, I'll paraphrase, hey, you got this rate hearing coming up, and I only found out about it because of my neighbor. Could you please highlight all the different things that we've sent out to every one of our customers to try and make sure everyone knows about this?
Certainly, it'd be my pleasure. And we know, no matter how hard you try to reach out to everyone, people still do fall through the cracks. So if you haven't heard from us already, I'd really love for you to email us at outreach@WMWD.com so we can look into why that is. We know, like I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, that customers want to hear from us more because it is critically important, especially on proposals like this that impact you so directly. So since really January, we've started actively promoting this type of information through all of our digital channels. If you follow us on social media or are subscribed to receive our emails, we've been sending information out both to those channels. We've hosted 3 board workshops. This is the 4th of 5th customer information sessions. We continue to send out those email blasts. We've also mailed every customer public hearing notice. So you should have already received that in the mail that explains your direct impact specific to your area. Today was kind of a general overview, but that rate notice that was mailed to you has your specific impacts. In addition to that mailer, we've also mailed 2 different postcards and continue to be active with our, our non-residential customers, our other stakeholders in the community. We continue to push out that digital information. So if you haven't received those, we want to know why. We want to look into that and get you connected so that you can get the information that you want to hear. But we are continuing to promote this information to make sure customers know about that June 2nd meeting, because you're right, it is important that all of our customers know about it and have the opportunity to join us if it's of interest. So certainly a lot of work on that front, and always open to ideas of how to improve so that our customers are getting that information. Ms. Mahoney, before I do have one other customer question, but if this is related to the question you just asked, we certainly want to hear from you. So I'll give you one more opportunity before I move on, but certainly if you have others, we can save it for after this other customers who've sent it in. Feel free to unmute yourself. There we
Okay,
go.
I'm here. Okay. Could you elaborate on the fact that there was no travel with Western Municipal? So therefore, there's got to be some leeway in the budget. Can any of the board members address that issue?
Kevin, can you help us out? So every year we close out our budget, and there's always adjustments that are made, and money is moved around at the end of the budget, because a budget is just a forecasting document. So Kevin, how do we handle that?
Sure. So we're on a fiscal year basis, which is July 1 through June 30th. And whenever there is unspent money, that money just goes back into what we call reserves, which is really like a savings account. That savings account, just like with a home or a household, is there in case there's unexpected expenses. Maybe you might save X amount of money this year, but the next year there'll be some unexpected, card repair or, other expense that might pop up. And so Western's board of directors has established a reserve policy. And for the operating reserve, we target having 3 months of operating costs as a minimum, and then a maximum of 6 months in operating costs. So for this rate period, though, this starts for July 1. So this is moving forward. And at this point, we don't have a whole lot of travel costs in the budget for the upcoming year. But anything that is saved, and not just travel costs, it could be anything, maintenance, repairs, all sorts of things. All that money that's not spent stays within the service area. So in other words, ratepayers who contributed to that, they are the benefactors. It's their savings account, because we have several different water and sewer service areas.
And again, when we were putting our 2-year budget together, it was right as the pandemic was hitting. And so we anticipated that there wouldn't be travel. So our travel budget is not very extensive at all. But that money, like Kevin said, will just stay with us, and it doesn't get spent anywhere else. It'll just go back into reserves, and then it'll be part of our budgeting process in the following budget.
Craig, it's Mike Gardner. Just to follow up on your last point about when the budget was being put together. We, at that time, anticipated that the Riverside area customers would likely be looking at a 3.5% rate increase, or at least proposed rate increase, the first year. So beginning this July. We got that down to 2% through a variety of savings since that budget was adopted. And it includes all the things that the staff has talked about, the bond refinancing, the savings on some employee benefits, reduced travel, probably some reduced building costs since people were not in the building very much. There's a whole string of things that contributed to that savings. And we continue to look for things that can allow us to charge you less. We are required by law, if you're going to increase the rates, to go through this process we're going through now. We are not required to go through any process to not charge you a previously approved rate. So essentially to give you a rate break. If we find a way that we can do that, we will. So we are all constantly looking for ways to save money. I'm pretty proud of that 1.5% that the district has found in the last year plus, from when we started this budget. And I just want to assure people that we are always looking for ways to save money when we can. So thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that was really good input, Director. I appreciate that. And it's been less than a year. So, that was the July 1 budget. And you're correct. We did anticipate that the revenue requirement when we pass that budget would be a 3.5% rate increase. And exactly like you said, because of savings and revenue increases because of meters and a lot of other little things that Kevin and his finance team are outstanding at finding, forecasting, and implementing, we've been able to knock 1.5% off of the rate that we were going and planning to request. So yeah, we don't really trumpet that. We think that's our job, is to go and find the lowest cost increase that's necessary to continue to operate our system.
Excellent. We do have another customer question. This one came through the chat. Western, do you have any restrictions if a homeowner drills an individual personal well and then disconnects from your water district service?
I think Tim Barr knows the answer to that.
All right. Restrictions. We don't have restrictions, but we have requirements. So for example, if someone is blessed to have a small amount of groundwater underneath their property and they drill a well, the only thing that's required is if you remain connected to the municipal system, we require a backflow prevention device so that the groundwater that is being extracted on that property does not accidentally come back into the Western system, so that we try to protect all of our customers. Now, if you choose to disconnect from the municipal system, that backflow is not required. And we will come out and we will remove the meter for you.
Great, that seems pretty straightforward. I don't have any new questions coming in, so perhaps we can close the evening with one final question before we head out for the evening. We want to respect everyone's time, so no need to linger on. But we have heard through a few social media posts recently, and we also heard tonight about some changes coming to our water budget. So tell me, how can a customer stay in budget when those budgets are regularly adjusting? And is our water budget built just to add profit to Western?
Sounds like it's coming my way.
It is coming your way, but let me start with the concept of water budgets, Tim, and then you can. Tim was one of the ones that created water budgets at Western. The theory behind a water budget is that we want all customers to operate efficiently in their water use. By all customers being efficient, we can make use of lower cost water and spread that to more customers. And it also keeps us from having to go out and find new supplies of water that are going to be more expensive than metropolitan. So if we all save water as a group, our cheapest water supply can last longer. And so that conservation ethic is super important, not just because we should all conserve our resources. It actually saves all of our customers a lot of money. We don't have to go out and find more expensive water. Now, the challenge is with the budget-based rates is how do we share that fairly with all customers? So Tim, maybe talk a little bit more about how the budgets change and how it's fair for everyone, and how you as a customer need to monitor this so that you don't get caught over budget.
Okay. So let me start by saying that the budget-based rate structure has been wildly successful in getting Western closer to efficient water use, Western as a whole. Back in 2009, when we started talking about implementing water budget-based rates, our residential gallons per capita as a total was over 250. 10 years later, our residential per capita water use is now at about 130. So our customers have done a phenomenal job in using water efficiently. Budgets themselves they do not adjust wildly, and they do not adjust randomly. It is a very scientific and structured process. We developed the indoor budget based on published residential end use studies that were done by the Water Research Foundation. And we are suggesting changes based on the state of California's adjustments to efficiency standards. The same efficiency standards that they are holding all retail agencies across the entire state of California to. The outdoor budget was developed using research done by the University of California, Riverside, right here in our backyard, and the Irrigation Association. So they were developed using scientific methods. They don't adjust randomly. As a matter of fact, they adjust every day based on real-time weather. What's good about that is that, you never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at us in January, February, November, December. You pick a historically cool month. What Western's rate structure does is that if it is warm in one of the traditionally cooler months, it actually grows because we get weather from a company called Hydro Point Data Systems out of Petaluma, California, that provides us with real-time weather for over 400 different areas in our retail service area. So if it is warmer in January, the budgets expand for every single customer in that area. How would a customer be able to adjust their budget? That's a little bit more complicated, but it can be done. This is why we are replacing our meters with smart meters. Once we have completed the replacement of all meters, we're going to implement a customer portal, which would allow them to actually take stock in where they are relative to their budget. They'll be able to log on to a website and take a look. A non-scientific method of doing that is, okay, if you look at last month's water bill, and let's say that your outdoor budget was 20 units, and we know that June and July and August are going to get warmer on us, you know that your budget is going to grow a bit. If we're in August and September and October and your outdoor budget is 20 units, you know that in November and December, historically, the amount of water needed by plants is going to drop. But rest assured that with the real-time weather that we get, if we have an anomaly and it is warm in November and December and January and or February, the budgets grow back up again. Now, Western does have programs. These programs are funded from the conservation components currently in tier 3, 4, and 5. If the board approves the structural changes, we will only have tiers 3 and 4, but this conservation revenue by law can only go into rebate programs. So if a customer is having trouble staying in budget, we have an efficiency evaluation program that is free of charge, and we will send someone out to an individual property to do a couple of things, to actually look at the scheduling on the irrigation controller and leave behind a schedule based on historic values. The inspector will actually look for leaks and look for ways to improve the irrigation system. So if you're providing shrubs with sprinkler irrigation, they might recommend drip irrigation. If you have a lot of turf, they might say, hey, have you considered the turf rebate program that we provide using those conservation funds? So there are a number of tools out there. So we will get better. If you're having trouble, contact us.
Tim, I would add also that there's a misconception that maybe it's more of a conspiracy that Western changes these budgets to make more money off of the customers. And that's absolutely not the case at all. As Tim said, our budgets that we develop to operate our system and serve our customers doesn't include any revenue from penalties. So that money for a customer that goes over budget and they have to pay a penalty, that goes into a separate account, and it's only utilized to invest in conservation measures to get customers back within budget. So it doesn't go to paying salaries, it doesn't go to benefits, it doesn't go to anything else. It's only for conservation measures. So that's a misconception that we see on social media that, you know, Western's randomly changing these to make more money off of the customers. That's not true at all.
Well, and can I make a couple of comments to that point as well? You know, Western is a not-for-profit entity. We're not out there to bolster anything. We are using customer money for customer needs, and we only purchase what we actually need to. What the demand is what we're meeting. So if there is demand, then we buy. If there isn't demand, then we purchase less water. So that's one thing. And the other thing, to your case in point, I want to make sure that people understand that when we did these meters and we did this very calculated study that went forward from engineering and finance and to our communications and doing all of these things, when we did our meter outreach and our replacement program, at the point that we were studying that, there was a 9% at one time calculated water loss. So when we're doing the replacements and we're taking all of that off of the table because the meters are being replaced and unintended consequences of leaks from old equipment, that is a savings to the customer because the water loss was burdened across the board by everybody. So that was something that was a demand. So we wanted to make sure that that was removed from the table. So you're actually only spending what you are actually using and not just unintended consequences of loss from equipment that had been outdated. So I think those are really important to understand. And that program was also done through the means of grants and other funding mechanisms that we had, and it wasn't being just borne over customers having to pay and buy that equipment. So we looked for a lot of opportunities, but those are all contributing factors to helping save on those water budgets, to the benefit of the customer. We're not buying more than what we actually need and what demand is, and that we're looking for those cost savings, which are attributed through those additional types of equipment, programs, and otherwise that we're using. So I think those, just a couple of key points I had to throw in there, guys. Sorry.
Great. Well, thanks for that response. I do see Ms. Mahoney, I do see your hand raised again, so we'd be happy to open the floor to your question. You can do your best to pose it as a question, as that way we can best respond.
Actually, I was wondering if my director is present at this meeting right now. Director Torres, she is in my division. I wondered if she'd like to speak on what we were talking about tonight.
Director Torres, you're muted. I'm going to go ahead and try to see if we can unmute you since.
Hi.
There you go. We can hear you now.
Sorry, I'm with my kids picking them up. So, but I am here. I've been listening the whole time. I'm really happy that you're here, Miss Mahoney. I think it's what I see. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a question in particular? I have been watching and listening, and I'm really hoping that people come to the public hearing and voice their opinions then also.
Well, basically what I was talking about with the other board members, they were answering my question in terms of the budget. How do you see it? How do you see it being a realistic sense in terms of everything that's happening right now and during our pandemic? I mean, obviously you folks are employed, you're there, I'm speaking of on the other half of it, I'm speaking about to the people that are within your division that are going to have a hard time with this, and I understand, I heard what the others were saying. I'm just wondering what your opinion is. What do you have to say?
Thank you so much. I can say, I'm going to say, and I can say that our staff is working incredibly hard to ensure that the budget, the monies that come in, everything is copacetic, and we're using it exactly like President Denstead said, for customer needs. I am concerned about a rate increase coming out of a pandemic when about 800 customers, 700 being mine, were unable to pay their bills during this pandemic. I am concerned about that. Staff, though, like I said, is working diligently to solve that water debt crisis that we are in, Western specifically. But to be quite frank, that is a concern of mine. I'm also concerned about the fact that I get email upon email about email with people's rates going skyrocketing randomly throughout the year, and not randomly, it was explained that, depending on the budget, the time of the year, the budget changes, and those things need to be taken into account. But I am concerned about those things. I'm concerned about the Facebook posts that I see. I'm concerned about the emails I get, the texts I get of people that are already inundated in water bills. The problem is exactly what you heard Craig say, is that we don't have a lot of control on those fixed rates, because we use them for water, for utilities, to make sure that water is getting to your home. And so I am invested. I am committed to finding solutions for my division, because it's unique to the other divisions, and that has the most ratepayers, and seemingly the ratepayers that are being most impacted by our rates. Our rate structure and our rate increases. So I haven't formed an opinion on the rate adjustment yet. I will do so at the public hearing, which is why I really hope that people show up, voice their opinions after hearing, especially after hearing all the information sessions, which I fought for. I actually fought for having these 2 information sessions this week, because I know how important it is for you all to hear what is going on, and how and have this engagement with your directors, not just me, but the rest of the board, because I'm only one vote on this board. There are 5 of us making this decision, not just me myself. But to be honest, to answer your question, I am concerned coming out of a pandemic to be increasing rates.
I appreciate that, because we have to remember that we are all as a community, but you are there to serve the people of Riverside. And I appreciate the time. I thank you for indulging me, all of you, with question after question. I usually am much better at in-person meetings, and I will be there on the 2nd for sure. And I will let my neighbors as well know that this meeting is going to take place. And it's very important that there's a dialect back and forth. So thank you.
So yes, please do so. I've been trying to reach out as much as I can through all the different groups, and personally to ensure that people come in and they speak on it, and whether that is I love rate increases, please increase my rates, or not, we need to hear that as a board of directors. And I don't feel like we have heard enough yet, but I know that our staff is working to communicate, working to get you all the information, but what we need is for you to communicate back and let us know how you feel about the proposal.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Just to add one thing here, there is another meeting like this Wednesday evening this week, also at 6 p.m. So there'll be more chance for dialogue at that meeting than there will be at the hearing on June 2nd. It's a little more formalized. So if you can help us spread the word on a meeting just like this one, 2 nights from tonight, that will be helpful.
Okay. I might have more questions by then.
I think
we'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you so much. I do want to make it clear that I really appreciate my colleague, Mike Gardner, because I feel like he's done just as much of a strong effort trying to reach out to the Riverside area customers. So thank you, Director. But I do want to make it clear that this is this is a public meeting, so anything that you are saying right now is going to be on the record. But if on Wednesday we don't have enough directors, it will just be an information session. So nothing you say will be on the record, aside from being on a video. At the public hearing, that's where you can make your comments and voice heard on the record. So it's in the minutes, on the record, exactly how our customers feel about the proposal.
All right. Thank you.
I think that's a really great segue to wrap up our evening together. And Ms. Mahoney, your questions are exactly why we're here tonight. We were here to present anyone interested in this information and make sure you're heard and that all your questions were answered. So we look forward to seeing you hopefully again on Wednesday and helping us spread the word through all the ways that we are already doing. We'll also be reaching out to a couple of customers who let us know they haven't quite been receiving our outreach. So we want to figure out why that is. So expect to hear from staff in the next day or so. But with that, I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight's presentation. And I want to remind you that all of this information is going to be available on our website, WMWD.com/2021 proposed rates, including the recording of this session and all of the other sessions. It also has information about that public hearing, how you can get involved, and how you can express a formal comment that will be considered into the record, much of what was already discussed towards the end of our discussion this evening. A follow-up email will also be sent to you sharing the documents presented today. So if you haven't been receiving our emails, check your junk folder or make sure you're subscribed to receive our emails. You can also send us an email to outreach@WMWD.com. That'll connect you directly with my team, and we will get back with you quickly. And as a reminder, I think we beat a dead horse, but we do have one last customer information session this Wednesday, 6 p.m., and that June 2nd public hearing. So with that, I'll turn it over to our esteemed board president, who I believe has some formal ways to close our meeting today.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Certainly appreciate that. And I wanted to thank everyone for their attendance tonight. It's really important that you are a part of this public participation, and we do appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to come and spend some time with us and get informed on what it is that we are doing as your water district. I wanted to give an opportunity. I've heard from Director Gardner and Director Torres, and I wanted to give an opportunity to Director Rizvi if she had any comments or would like to say anything this evening. Director Rizvi?
I believe Director Rizvi was having some connection issues, so she
Okay.
may not be able to unmute herself.
I had a couple of pauses going on tonight too. I don't know if it was my service or if it was just our connection tonight and the group. So I don't know if that was something that we all experienced or whatnot. So that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we were giving everybody the opportunity to speak tonight. Anybody else with any final words of wisdom, comments, concerns, magic lottery numbers you'd like to share with us? Anything of that importance?
No, staff has said a lot. I think we're done for the evening.
Okay, well, no, I really thank staff tonight. You know, it's getting late in the evening, so I want to go ahead and close the meeting, but thank you so much. We do appreciate all of the information that you bring forward and the professionalism that you bring forward to this board in doing presentations. So thank you for that. Certainly appreciate it. And with that, folks, we'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful job in planning and hosting